Well, I just thought there was kind of an unknown factor in the Jersey Boys play, and nobody could figure out why it was such a success, the play. And it had been so successful for 9 years on Broadway and 6 years in London and various times. And I always wondered why, I wondered after seeing it, why nobody had ever made it. But on the other hand, nobody could really put their finger on why it was such a hit. Audiences were giving it standing ovations and things, and as a play. And there's something about that story. There's something about the fact that this sort of undiscovered music and undiscovered life of these guys. They didn't discover. Nobody discovered that they had come from a background of, a background that's possible leading towards juvenile delinquency, and they were trying to be singers at 40s New Jersey, which was kind of tough neighborhoods, and the ideas of being singers and then singing falsetto at that was not a thing to do. It was not like being on the football team or something, or something, being a sports, and a person who excels in sports or something. So then they become successful, and then they become successful, and it gets them out of trouble with the help of gangsters and a lot of different elements. So it becomes a fascinating story, and then everybody forgets about how good that music was. In a rock and roll era where some of the music was pretty inane, and the boy next door kind of singers were doing well or getting hit records, maybe only one or two, but these guys did a whole string of records that made a lot of money, and they did some classic ones in there as well that become classics, that become a classic in any generation. I can't take my eyes off of you. You're too good to be true. Those lyrics would have gone over in any generation, even the great Tin Pan Alley songs and the Mercers and Gershwins and people couldn't do any better than that. And so it's a fascinating thing just to discover. To answer your question, when I just decided I'd try it and take a swing at bat with it. I don't know whether I knew the secret of it. All I know is I enjoyed it when I watched it, and I said, I'm just going to put it together and see if I enjoy it, then I hope somebody else might. I might have. I certainly. I might have, but I didn't. I mean, I was still in the '60s and stuff. I was still listening to Charlie Parker and Lester Young and Art Tatum, Oscar Peterson, Dave Brubeck, all that crowd, and that kind of music, which I still adore, but I've branched out into other music in my life, and I found out from being an actor and doing music plays that I've found values in music that I didn't care for when I was young, like country music, but I realized, through the years that there were some really great players and some really great songs and lyrics in country music, and the only music I haven't tried yet in a film is classical, which I adore as well. So maybe I'll get a chance to do that someday. No, I don't think it's a musical. I mean, I think of it in terms of the story. I'd rather approach it from the play and that story as a story about these boys, and it just happened to be music that they were doing. I mean, it could have been something else. It could have been tennis players or something like that, and maybe they went on to become something. But the music was unique, and some of the songs written by Gardio and crew and other people were just very infectious at the time. And I think people forget, older people forget about that how good they were, and they're reintroduced to it. And younger people are introduced to it for the first time and think it's not so bad either, you know. Well, I wanted to, for me, if a big star can come up, is out there who can sing well, play the story well, that's one thing. But to me, you have many companies, all the way from London to San Francisco, Chicago, New York. There's a lot of companies in Australia playing this play, and so there's a tremendous amount of actors who are schooled up on this play, and there's really no reason why not to consider them. And I think that a movie's success depends on is on the total ensemble, not based upon the name value from doing some other kind of movie. These actors, I think the public, I hope the public will agree, these actors are going to be tough to beat for bringing the thing alive. And Vince Piazza, who came in not being involved with the play, Christopher Walken not being involved with the play, come in, and they both fit in nicely and do a terrific job. And no, I think the play is a star by itself, and people have to discover that. And the public who has seen it has. Now we have to just get to the movie public. And but just putting names in a play, that's easy to do, but it's not so easy to pull it off. It may have lost its, the ensemble may not have come out the same. And these guys, I just had to make up what I thought was the proper blend, and just amazingly based upon ability. Frankie Valli. Well, I'd met him once, I think, years ago, many years ago, and then we met when I was doing the project. I had dinner with him one night, and with some mutual friends, and we talked about it, and he talked about the play and this and that, and he gave me a little bit of the history of the whole thing, his involvement anyway. And then we talked nostalgically about the music of the 40s, because he was raised in that era as well, and the big band era, and Ellington, Stan Kenton, Woody Herman, Count Basie, that era. And then we talked about Sinatra, who was also a New Jerseyite, who grew up, and what it must have been like to be him trying to be a singer in New Jersey at that particular time in history. And so it's pretty big. It was a pretty big deal. Singers were not, and to sing falsetto, like I mentioned earlier, was really a risky thing. If he hadn't had the gangster, or the mobster of Jim DiCarlo on his team, he might have been beaten up badly. So that's one element, and that is a lot of different characters come and go in the play that are interesting. Some of them tragically, and some of them inspirational.